Welcome to Finding Avalon, the podcast that amplifies disabled voices. I'm your host, Jenna, a disability inclusion advocate, communicator, and storyteller. This is a place where disabled folks correct the narrative by sharing authentic lived experiences. Join me as we explore life with disability through our lens, because representation matters. Welcome back to the Finding Avalon podcast. This is where we celebrate and elevate disabled advocates and anti-ableist allies, one story at a time. On this episode, we have Candice Colwell from Atlantic, Canada. From the time Candice was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, otherwise known as MS, at the age of 22, she's been an advocate for further research, raising awareness for those who live with MS and disabilities. Candice's volunteer roles include being an MS ambassador for MS Canada and a member of the MS Ambassador Executive for Canada, working as a group facilitator for support and being team captain for her MS Walk team. When she's not slaying MS demons, she's kept busy being a dog mom to her 1-year-old dachshund, Zelda. Welcome, Candice.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm delighted to have you. Will we be seeing Zelda at any point?
No, she is in her crate, so she just needs a nap now. She likes to be the star of the show, so she probably would be making a lot of noise.
That's the way my kitties are. So I've given them a lot of treats and food so that they go into a nice cozy slumber.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that works out.
Hopefully.
So Candice, without further ado, let's get into sharing your story.
Sure.
Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is a chronic autoimmune disease that affects the central nervous system, including the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves. It's an unpredictable condition, and symptoms, as well as outcomes, vary significantly from person to person. Common disabling symptoms include pain, extreme fatigue, mobility issues, numbness, tingling, lack of sensation, weakness, and vision, speech, cognition, memory, and coordination difficulties, bladder problems, and mood changes, not to mention the physical, emotional, and financial toll that comes with MS. And because of its progressive, ever-changing, and incurable nature, the effects of multiple sclerosis remain with a person for the rest of their lives. Something that really stands out is that women are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with MS. Here in Canada, we have one of the world's highest rates of MS, with roughly 12 people diagnosed every single day. Currently, we have an estimated 90,000 Canadians living with MS, and the National Public Health Agency is projecting this will rise to more than 133,500 people in just the next 5 to 6 years. Now, these are some sobering statistics and a strong reason to take MS, understanding it, navigating it, and coping with it seriously. Candice, can you tell us about why it's important for people to be aware of and informed about this progressive illness, whether it impacts them personally or somebody else that they know and care about?
Well, it's Canada's disease. As you mentioned, that there's over 90,000 people that have it. That's a lot of people, and Canada has the highest rates of MS in the world. So as Canadians, we have to be aware of this. It's more common in northern climates, and unfortunately, that's what Canada is. There's been research and studies, but nothing has been fully confirmed that it can be related to a vitamin D deficiency. Because in northern climates, we don't get as much sun. Basically, you're attacking yourself and not even knowing it. MS eats the myelin sheath, and that's where we get disability as related to MS. Kind of like if you have a phone charger and like the exterior starts to peel off, that's basically the same idea as the myelin sheath being eaten away by the MS off your myelin in your brain, which controls all of the things.
Mm-hmm. And when you say myelin sheath, that coats like the brain and the brainstem and all the way down the spine, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And I love that you're using plain language, so people can understand what it's like. I always say it's like I'm being short-circuited or hot-wired, you know what I mean?
And just a few other things about MS. Everyone's MS journey is different. We all, when I say we all of us who live with MS may have some similar symptoms, but how they manifested, when they happened, is so very different from one person to another. If you talk to one person with MS and another one, you would be convinced that they have two different illnesses. And MS is also a progressive illness. Unfortunately, with age comes additional challenges. Um, MS makes the decisions that it wants to, and you just have to stay along for the ride.
Hmm.
And it's so varying, that's for sure. And it's scary when you look look back at yourself to see where you are and where you've been before. It's not always bad where you are, because there's a lot of up and downs, so it's very
It's not
complicated.
not linear.
Definitely not.
Yeah. And as we get older, we expect that our joints and our
Mhm,
mobility change,
mhm,
our memory and our cognition changes, all sorts of things in our bodies
mhm.
change. But when you have MS and you're aging as well, like every other person,
Yes.
your brain is, I guess, would it make sense to say that, like, there are these holes that are forming in that myelin sheath, and it's just deteriorating
Mhm.
alongside of the fact that you're aging, which is a form of deterioration, of
Yes,
course. So
yes.
it's almost like a double whammy.
Another thing about MS is it's a chronic illness. So you see someone, oh, and you haven't seen them in a while, like, get better. Well, with a chronic illness, it doesn't matter if it's MS, diabetes, or many other illnesses, it's not going anywhere. Yes, we
Mhm.
take stuff to try to keep the symptoms at bay, but there's nothing yet that's been discovered that's a cure yet. So we're
Mhm.
not getting better, unfortunately. We might have a better day,
Yeah.
but in 3 days' time, we're back to who knows what.
Yeah. And maybe new symptoms, who knows, right? And
Correct.
the thing about chronic illness that I think a lot of people may not realize, and probably because they have the privilege of not being chronically ill and not unwell all the time.
Correct.
Chronically just means consistently and constantly for anybody listening who kind of isn't sure. But when you're chronically ill, you hear from people, oh, get better soon, feel better soon. Oh, you seem to be doing so much better. You're better now. You're well. You're cured. And I find that whenever I tell somebody that I have a chronic, incurable, progressive illness, I don't know whether they just can't wrap their heads around it and can't believe it, or maybe it's just an uncomfortable thought to think about, wow, wait, so someone like you, and therefore someone like me, could become sick and never get better again? And like, you mean forever? I've had people say, you mean like this is for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And I say, yeah, and that's super overwhelming when you're
Mm.
dealing with so many chronic illness symptoms, whatever
Yes,
your chronic illness is. And
exactly.
MS is a perfect example because it's also non-visible unless the person is using a mobility aid. It's
Mhm.
very non-visible, right?
Correct. What do you mean? You look so great.
That's what they
You
say. You're
look
so
great.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what kinds of things have people said to you, Candice? Like,
Um, like, I look so great. I have had a couple of people realize and be like, "You probably don't wanna hear that." Um, I'm very cognizant when I use my accessible blue pass, because if I'm not using, an assistive device, they just see, like, this young person park there and get out of the car, and I'm
yeah.
waiting. I haven't had anyone say anything to me, but I'm pretty sure it was close.
And I have heard a lot of people who have chronic illnesses with their blue parking accessible
Mhm.
pass have had people accost them, run up and shout at them,
Yes.
shame them. And non visible disabilities, non apparent, I hate the word invisible disability because
Yeah.
people think invisible can mean imaginary. Do you know what I mean? They
Yes.
think, it's not really
Yes.
real. It's not real if I can't see it.
Right.
Are you sure you're not
Yeah.
making this up or making it worse than it is?
Right.
But for all sorts of reasons, a person could have a blue parking pass, be in excruciating pain while they're probably walking fairly similar to everyone else. But
Correct.
like, Candace, do you mask your pain when you're out in public like that if you're feeling pain in your body?
I usually try to, or I'm moving very slow so they might get something because 'cause I'm trying not to make it obvious.
Hmm.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
it shouldn't matter.
Hmm.
Somebody is like a broken leg and everyone's like, "Oh, get better," and it's no big deal. But as soon as you don't have something that you describe, like they can't sign your cast type thing. So it's very different like that. I've been lucky. I haven't had a lot of people say things to me.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of people assume that I hurt my leg when I've used my cane.
Mhm. People think you have
Um,
maybe a sports injury or
that's
you had a
right.
slip or fall. That happens to me too.
Yes. I'm always ready. Like, not on edge, I'm always ready, especially when I park in the blue parking spots, and it depends who I see around me that's parked in other ones.
Mhm.
I'm more like, ready for them to say something depending on the person that it is, and I shouldn't judge people that I don't know. So I feel bad about saying that, but there's certain people
Mhm.
who seem to have more of a problem with it than other people, based on
Mhm.
my own experience. I'm not speaking about everybody.
Mhm. Well, ableism comes in all shapes and sizes.
Correct.
Ableism lives in the bodies of the people we love and who love us
Mhm,
the most.
mhm.
Ableism lives inside of us as well as
Correct.
people with disabilities. And you do have people that may be a little less intolerant of anyone's differences, and therefore their ableism can be much more damaging and unsettling. And so you're
Correct.
probably feeling hypervigilant when you're doing that. So
Yes.
I know when I'm using my mobility aid, I'm hypervigilant of,
Mhm.
okay, if somebody comes up, because people do, they'll come up and say, "What happened to you? What is this, a new fashion accessory?" Literally all kinds of questions and comments. "What do you need that for? What's wrong with you?" Strangers, these are strangers. You know, I actually told this story in a talk I gave recently. I had a man cross the sidewalk to where I was and kick my cane out from under me and knock me down in
Wow.
downtown Halifax. Yeah. And this
Wow.
was not like somebody who looked like they would do it to anyone. It was somebody who was dressed like they were going to work, you know. And so there's that vulnerability that is indicated when you do have a mobility aid. And I've been yelled at and shouted at and accosted by, usually it's random men, unfortunately. And I know since the pandemic, obviously mental health has been frayed. In Canada, mental health disabilities have more than tripled in the last 5 years. So our hypervigilance, Candice, I don't think is paranoia. I think it's a reflection of the kind of temperature in the environment around us.
Correct.
Mm,
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
mhm. What would you say if somebody does accost you?
I often think about what it would be, and it's almost like I wanna have a prepared response, but I really don't, so I feel like I need to work on that, like, just based on, like, doing some reading from people who have been through this, like, ask the person if they're okay,
Mhm.
because why
Yeah.
are they asking you? It's not their business.
Yeah.
Or if they're asking what's wrong with you? Why are you don't know me. So those kind of things, like, I think that if you were to ask them, "Are they okay?" It's gonna catch them off guard because you are in a way acting to be concerned about them when they are getting ready to accost you, basically, or it's
Yeah.
coming. You can sense
Yeah.
it coming. So I feel like that would be my response, although I would have a lot of other responses in my head that would make the
Mhm.
situation better.
Mhm.
You can use your imagination.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
Sometimes you match energy, sometimes you have to, right? I think too, people have this. They believe they're entitled, but they believe it's curiosity, but really it's intrusiveness because I'm a stranger, you will never see me again. You are taking my time, you're impeding my way. You might be making it unsafe for me to walk in this space by coming up to me and accosting me or verbally shouting at me as you pass. I think it's probably the most vile form when people bully disabled people. I just think to myself, okay, so you've decided to pick on the person who is struggling to get through today. That shows me how powerless you feel. It also shows me who you really are. I can have a lot of grace for people often to say, okay, sometimes people just aren't educated. And when they're coming to you the way they're speaking, sometimes that they don't realize. And I just say, well, that's a really private question. Have a good day. Or sometimes when it's people aren't trying to be harmful, you can educate them and sidestep. But as you say, sometimes you have to be ready for something a little less pleasant.
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
I think that goes for just everything. The world is very mean
Yes.
now, but it
Yeah.
just is about anything and everything. I'm just a little bit different than the normal, so that's not okay.
I think that the world was never really good at tolerating anything quote unquote different.
True.
And now it's such an individualistic society. It's a capitalist driven society
Yes.
where they don't care about somebody who is different. And in fact, you're a risk or liability or an obstacle to them. And therefore, they will treat you with a little more harshness. And I think that's a real sign of our evolution or devolution as a society. When I was on a bus, oh, gee, I guess it was probably a year ago now. I remember it was a day that I had my mobility aid. I don't often need it, but when I do, I take it. And I remember there were no accessible seats because, of course, people don't think about
Mhm.
who needs these seats. And that doesn't mean that the people in those seats might not have had non-visible disabilities. So I always keep that in mind. Like, okay, that's fine. And I kind of was back towards the back of the bus. And when the bus stopped, and the bus driver knows the route that I take and knows that I sometimes have a mobility aid without saying anything, he observes, right? And I was walking slowly, of course, to get off the stop. And there was a man towards the front, some people who like to just kind of stand up with their arms up on the bars. And he actually put both of his arms up on both bars, spread out both of his legs, and just started hollering at me because he didn't think I deserved to go through the lowered front entrance of the bus. And even with my cane, and I'm not going to use the language, I'll use some of the language, but he basically said, "You effing bitch, don't be such an asshole, you lazy asshole," and like screaming a lot of other very misogynistic terms.
Wow.
And I remember I wasn't going to approach him any closer. I didn't know if he might be, you don't know what the situation could be. And he was
Correct.
a very, very, very big man. And I turned around and tried to get out on the back. And then there's like a snowbank. And,
Mhm.
I almost, killed myself trying to get out of that bus. But the bus driver, I have to really give that bus driver props. And this bus driver removed him from the bus, waited for me to get past and clear so the man wouldn't continue to accost me. But he was like, "You are banned from this bus. We have cameras on this bus. You cannot be treating people like that. What is wrong with you?" Meanwhile, we don't know what could be the situation of this person. Maybe
Exactly.
there's mental health
Mhm.
issues. We know that there's a lot of addictions, homelessness, mental illness cycling, right? They feed into each other.
Yes.
And so I try to have compassion for when people behave this way, but it was very, very intense. And I thought this could actually escalate. So I need to get out of here. Um, and I was very thankful to the bus driver, but that was an act of not only doing his job for
Right.
security and
Correct.
accessibility, but it was also him showing his humanity and allyship. Yeah.
Yes.
And as you say, people are getting meaner, crueler, less tolerant, and shorter fuses.
Mhm. There's no patience. I'll put myself into that category. I'm not immune to that.
Yeah, of course.
Add the extreme fatigue to that, and the patience goes pretty quickly. So I'm not excusing myself from that either. But
Hmm.
you can't excuse the people who lash out for no reason either.
Hmm.
So
Especially because violence can happen very easily
yes, it
now.
can.
And he was ramping up. Like you could
Hmm.
see him, he was getting bigger and getting more aggressive and coming
Yes.
closer. And yeah. And when I tell this story, I don't tell it very often because I'm embarrassed. I'm an East
Hmm.
Coaster. I'm so proud of the East Coast and
Yes.
how we are with each
Hmm.
other. But it is a perfect example of aggression, ableism, and the way society is not evolving, let's just
No.
say. And
No.
I like that you mentioned about the patience factor because I can tell you personally, having chronic illness, I am always in pain. Even when I look like I'm fine, I'm smiling, we are masking through our pain. Like I'm sitting here talking to you now, and every single muscle in my body feels like someone is punching me and hitting me. Like
Mhm.
it is so painful. And then you got spasms, you got fatigue, you've
Yes.
got whatever cognitive,
Yes.
slowness, and it's easy to get frustrated
Mhm.
and lose your temper too, right? That's
Mhm.
that's a human reality to living with any kind of illness, I think.
Correct. I think a lot of people are very judgmental, just based on visually, like, seeing someone. People make a lot of assumptions about people for various reasons, and I believe that, unfortunately, it's not getting better in society. In my opinion, I feel like it's getting worse. Even people who live with disability are judging other people living with disability. Sometimes I witnessed it. It's like a symptom competition, and I've had to remove myself from that because that's not helpful. But it gets into that, and you're just like, wow, it doesn't really matter. Or it seems like you would think that as disabled people, we would have more compassion for other people, but we're judging people just like everyone else. And it's sad, but people are people, and that's unfortunately when it
Mm.
happens. But I think we all could, like, just think before you're saying stuff, maybe hold on for a minute. You shouldn't be judging them. You have no idea what's going on for the person who's standing next to you in line.
And I also think it's really important to look within our own community as the disability community, because I have been noticing that in the social media spaces and even in professional spaces with advocates, there is quite a lot of quick to jump on somebody, quick to compare somebody as not as disabled as another, which itself is internalized ableism, right? And we know we all have bias. Every single one of us have biases. But I do notice that the minute someone may post something, it could be a wonderful post, very educational, the person forgot to put in alt description in other text. They forgot an accessibility thing. Maybe they were in so much pain, they were lucky that they even got that posted. Maybe they don't have the capacity or the tools to do everything perfectly accessibly. And I see a lot of the disability community going after each other and shaming each other in posts and comments. And for me, I back away very quickly, and that shows me what I need to know, because that's not a safe space. If you can't have grace for people to make mistakes, maybe you can correct that you didn't add something accessible. You can always apologize, correct it, do your best. There's this expectation of perfection, and there's a competitiveness I've seen and amongst
Agreed.
advocates, right? It's that
Agreed.
it's that jockeying, because there's this scarcity mindset that I need to get booked and I need to be the top name. I need to be a top thought leader on LinkedIn, for example. People who
Yes.
have these goals and they're churning out all this content and great content,
Mhm.
but then you see them turning on each other. And I've watched some pretty upsetting exchanges where I lose respect for both people involved. And I go, do you not realize the world is watching this? Like, you're
Correct.
like crabs in the bucket right now, and we are all fighting for the disability community. We're all fighting for each
Mhm.
other. Yeah.
There is, I do notice that there's a lot more competition, or to be the best of whatever it is. Is
Mhm.
it volunteering? Is it posting on social media? Is it being asked to speak on TV? I have found that it seems like it is.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate because why didn't they pick me? I am worse off and I am better at that. So it is, I do see that as well. It doesn't seem to matter who I'm involved with in a group setting, on a Zoom call. I'm just like, when did this become a competition? We all have the same goal, but people are just competitive about everything. And not in the right way, like, especially because if people are working in the community, the odds are they're volunteers. So why are you adding the extra stress
Mhm.
to that, or, like, creating the competition? I understand some people that drives them having competition.
Sure.
But there's a time and a place for it. Like, are you raising money? Yes, have a competition for that,
Yeah.
not a symptom competition.
Yes.
Or how many hours you've done this competition. Like, I can understand on a
Mhm.
financial competition thing,
Yeah.
it's different.
Yeah.
That's just me. I see it as 2 different things.
Mhm.
So it's just unfortunate that it's gone that way, and I'm actually Not happy that you've noticed that as well, but
Yeah,
pleased to know I'm not the only one noticing it.
definitely not. It's a conversation that's been quietly had. And then you have the comparisons. It seems like people are just watching to catch someone out, like a policing tone
Mhm.
to some conversations I see, or people trying to kind of outspeak the other in comments to make their comment more valid. And
True.
they don't realize that they're probably invalidating another disabled community member when they do that. There's a lot of
Yes.
this subtle and not so subtle shame when it comes to social
Great.
media. Yeah.
Yes. I just really think that we need to not judge people so much. Let kindness rule. You have no idea what someone is going through because you can't see it unless it's physically manifested. You can't see it. So just be a little bit nicer.
Hmm. Exactly. Doesn't take much to pause and really just think and hold your tongue for a second.
Exactly. And also, not everything is a competition.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's struggles in life are valid. Everybody's condition is valid. A lot of people do tend to compare different disabilities as well, or they say, I know somebody who has MS and they do yoga and they're traveling the world and they're fine. Listen, they're not fine. You may think that they are
That's
fine.
right.
And you don't see the real struggle. You're not in their
Mm.
body feeling the pain and all of those symptoms. And also, that person can have a relapse at any time. Their illness can progress, and it's always a moving it's almost like a moving target, and for any disability. That's like saying
Correct.
somebody who, I don't know, is epileptic. You can't be comparing, "Oh, well, I know somebody who is really epileptic," as if to say that other person that they're talking to isn't. It's very strange that this kind of talk happens,
Yes.
and I think there's a lot of education and compassion,
Mhm.
to be shared with people who truly don't know what they're saying, and there's also, I think, space for being more firm when you're correcting actual discrimination too, and actual hate speech, because there is hate speech that does happen around disability. What would you like to share about your own disability journey with MS?
Would you like me to start all the way at the beginning or focus on how disability is affecting my life currently? Or a little bit of both?
Whatever you feel comfortable with,
Okay.
whatever approach you'd like to take, I'm happy to listen.
Okay. Well, let's start at the beginning. So, within 6 months of graduating university at 22, I was diagnosed with MS. I started my career, and within less than a month, I received my diagnosis of MS. Initially, I thought not a big deal. I wasn't having any symptoms. I was living my life normally. Now, you're probably thinking, how was I living my life normally if I've just been diagnosed with MS? So, prior to all this, for a period of 6 months to a year, randomly my right eye would go blurry for no rhyme or reason. It didn't matter what I was doing on the computer, talking, driving, then it would go back fine. So, I went to the eye doctor. The eye doctor then proceeded to send me to an eye specialist. He did every single eye test under the sun, except he did not do an MRI. There's CAT scans, there was dye tests, air tests, more dye tests. It's a process. When you go to a specialist, you have to wait to see the specialist, however long that is. Luckily, almost 20 years ago, it was not as bad as it is today to wait to get to see a specialist. So by that time, it had pretty much gotten better, but I was also dealing with something. I went for a whole summer and I couldn't feel both of my legs very well. I would still intermittently have the eye thing. So I went to my GP and she examined me and she said, I'm not a specialist, but it sounds like MS. And then she referred me to see a neurologist. So I got in to see the neurologist. He goes through all of the testing, the standard neurological tests. And he told me in that appointment that it seemed like MS to him. However, he would need me to get an MRI for the confirmation. So fast forward, I get a call from my local MS clinic. So I'm there and they told me that I had MS. I don't think I had the same reaction as a lot of people that are diagnosed with MS because mine was very textbook. I didn't wait years to find out what it was, as many people do, and I wasn't having any symptoms at that time. So I just went on living my life like normal. I did start a medication. I take this injection 3 times a week. Everything was all good until it wasn't.
I'm very happy that you got diagnosed so quickly, especially without all of those symptoms wreaking havoc on your life, that somebody recognized that. I know in my own illness journey, it took almost 20 years. And then it adds to the trauma and to the damage that is irreversible that could
Mhm.
possibly have been avoided. I'm so thankful that you were put on medication quickly. And you said it was okay until it wasn't. What does that mean for you?
Well, I had 7 years on that medication I was mentioning, that the injection 3 times a week, and then I had a relapse that basically changed my life. Because of this large relapse that I had, I was put on different medication eventually, and it kinda turned into MS was okay for a couple years, and then it was really bad.
Mhm. Like
And
it just was exacerbated just all
it
of a
was
sudden?
exacerbated. I went through several medications to try to find one that would work for me, but it seemed like around 2-ish years, MS was like, "I don't like that one anymore. Move on to the next one." So it's
Mhm.
been a very up and down. Unfortunately, sometimes it's been more down than up.
Mhm.
Because one thing that I hate about it, I know life is unpredictable, but MS throws in so much other unpredictable.
Yeah.
That's one thing, like, of course, I hate the symptoms that come along with a relapse or the symptoms that I deal with every day, but how unpredictable it is, that's the biggest thing. Like, I've had times that I woke up and I couldn't wiggle my toes.
Yeah.
I was thinking about wiggling my toes. It wasn't processing, it wasn't going to where it should go. Unfortunately, that foot and leg, it has never been the same since. I can still use it fully, but if I get extra tired, that leg is like, "Hey, remember me? I am the annoying leg that doesn't wanna work properly." So, the damage was done. There was obviously new disease activity with that, but unfortunately, the medication I was given and the medication I take on the regular for MS, it doesn't fix what's already happened.
I think that's the hardest thing for a lot of MS patients and people who
Yeah.
support them to
Yes.
understand that you think, "Oh, maybe I will get better. Maybe this symptom will go
Mhm.
away." But once it has happened, once the damage has been done, there's no coming back from that. There's just
Yes.
managing from there, managing around
Right.
that. And when you said that you couldn't wiggle your toes, I'm guessing because it's a central nervous system condition. So the
Mhm.
signals from your brain telling you to wiggle your toes were trying to be sent to your foot and down your leg, but it wasn't being received. Like the
Correct.
signal was just not being received.
Yes.
So your body was on airplane mode.
Mhm. Yes, and
Mhm.
then unfortunately, within the same year of that, because of this large relapse I had, I was off work for over a year, and I had called my boss to be like, "Yeah, I'm coming back," and my right arm and hand stopped working. I'm right-handed. I could use it, but not very well. Like, I wasn't even able to brush my teeth with my right hand. My hand is pretty much back to how, like, we'll say, quote unquote, normal. However, I now hate the way that I write. It's more messy. And luckily, that is the only issue, like the remaining issue I have with my hand from that relapse. So it's things like that that you think they're going to get better because you're told that. And science says that give it time, it will get better. We can give you something that can help it. However, that might not actually be the case. It might get better a bit, better may not be back to what it was before. Then that goes into the unpredictability of it. You're being told, and science says that you'll get better. Yeah, you'll get better, but possibly not back to how it was before. So there's a couple things that play into the unpredictability of it that I find very frustrating, because you're told initially, say you have your first relapse, they're like, oh, it'll go back to normal. And you're like, yes.
Mm.
And then you find out that actually it gets better, maybe, but not to back where you were. So that's
Yeah,
something else that I don't like about the unpredictability of it, because anything time something new comes up, you're like, is this permanent?
that's right.
Or is time and medication or whatever a doctor recommends you do gonna make it 100% back to how it was? So that's something that
Yeah.
I struggle with as well.
Well, there's a lot of stress and worry and anxiety and even trauma that comes from constantly being in this state of suspension between, is this the new normal, the new reality?
Mhm.
When is the next change coming? And will that be permanent, or will I be able to somehow manage that on top of the other things? That's really heavy.
For Unfortunately, from that relapse that I was telling you about, I still deal with my right leg, if I'm really tired. It's slow to move, um, it just doesn't do what I want it to. And then from next couple relapses I had, fatigue became a big thing, and fatigue never left. It just kept getting worse. So that fatigue is my main symptom, and also now chronic pain is also related to the leg that didn't work. I would often have pain in my right leg. Well, now it has moved into both legs, and it can be just about all the time now. So that's another thing that I really wasn't ready for, the constant pain all the time and in both legs. So I'm at a point now that I don't know if these are the symptoms I'm going to have forever, or I'll go back to quote unquote baseline.
When there's a relapse, you never know how long it's going to be for, and whether there will be some new impacts that stick around after that relapse, or if it's just an exacerbation of what you already experienced, but just really, really amped up. Like it seems so mysterious in so many ways, unpredictable and mysterious,
Yes,
but
exactly.
not in the exciting way.
No, it's never exciting.
So, Candice, thank you so much for talking about your personal experience with MS. I know it is not easy. It's a very vulnerable thing to talk about. And this is advocacy in itself, in helping people understand your first person point of view, your story. I wanted to ask you about your advocacy work. I understand that MS Canada advocates for better healthcare and support for people with MS. What does your advocacy work as an MS ambassador involve? What do you do in this role to help people living with MS?
An MS ambassador is a volunteer leader. I am a facilitator for a support group for young adults living with MS that I created with a few other people a number of years ago. There seemed to be a need for it. There is MS support groups in my area, however, none that focused on young adults, as a lot of the initiatives to do with MS Canada did not focus on young adults. That is changing some now. So I do that group. I participate in the MS Walk every year with a team of family and friends, and I'm the team captain for that. I have been arranging illuminations as well as flag raisings for the month of May, as May is MS Awareness Month in Canada, with World MS Day on May 30th. Um, I do onboarding new ambassadors, spoke on the news several times discussing the MS Walk, MS Awareness Month, as well as one of MS Canada's large fundraisers, Burgers to Beat MS, which happens in August of every year. I was the impact speaker at several events for MS Canada. And this year I'm actually being one of the MCs for the MS Walk. So MC is a different role for me. So that should be
Wow.
interesting.
I can see you doing a great job of that. And
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot of fun, right?
Yes, I think so. And it's a very different role for me, all of this public speaking and awareness. Through MS, I found my voice. I really think that although I dislike MS, it made me find my voice. And coming from someone who dreaded public speaking, even being called on in class, not me at all. I was the person who got the report card that Candace should speak up more in class. So now I'm wanting to do all that. I'm being on the stage, being on the news, arranging all this. So that's a good thing about MS. It helped me find my voice. There's nothing that I can do to change that I have MS. So at least I can do this. Like, I just can't sit idly by and be like, just this is how it is. I find it's helpful for me and hopefully helpful for other people to talk about it, share my experiences.
And then you're also providing such valuable support for people who need to feel like they've got some community they can lean on when they're either first diagnosed, when they're going through a really hard time, because MS is a hard time, right? It's there's no sugarcoating
Yes,
it. And it must be meaningful and rewarding to be able to be a touchstone for other people in the MS community.
it is. And when I'm talking or sharing something, even on social media, if I can just like reach one person, it sounds cliche because I feel like everyone says that. But if like someone can read it or hear what I say and be like, okay, me too. It's nice not to be the only one. So, with being an MS ambassador and on the ambassador executive for Canada, I'm one of two people in Atlantic Canada. So I have a lot of ambassadors within the Atlantic provinces reach out to me asking me questions and things if they can't find it in a program or they're having an event. So I do mentorship in that way. With regards to the support group facilitation, I'll get direct messages from people and be like, have you dealt with this? What do you do? So I am not a medical professional, so I'd be like, "This is my personal experience, and I would recommend that you contact your doctor." And or MS Canada has a wonderful network now. It's the MS Canada Knowledge Network. Someone will answer your call, email. There's like an online chat thing. If you go to the MS Canada website, it'll say who they are and what you want to discuss. And they can provide you resources for a support group. If you're looking for like, where's your local MS clinic, how to fill out a certain form that you didn't know existed before having MS. So it's a really good program, and the majority of the people that work there are bilingual. They're all across Canada. They work from their homes. They work all week long. Their hours are applicable for everyone across Canada. So it's really good. I wish that had have existed when I was first diagnosed or in the early years of diagnosis because honestly, I people if you're just diagnosed or new, I mean, like, even if you're 5, 10 years in, different things come up that you never thought could happen before, and you were working, you're not working, you don't know where to ask, and so that program is very good.
I have seen in some of the material for MS Canada, um, that you had said before that no one has to face MS alone. Can
Right.
you talk to me a little bit about why you believe that?
I think now people are a little bit more aware of MS. I say a little bit because some people still have no idea that it exists. But there's more awareness for it, I think. There seems to be more commercials or like more ads for MS Canada of their different events than there was before. However, where MS is called Canada's disease, and the odds are without you being aware, you know someone or are friends with someone who has a family member who has it realistically. It's something you should be aware of. There are services available, although sometimes you still have to go looking for them. You don't have to deal with MS by yourself, whether it is through directly contacting MS Canada to talk to someone at the Knowledge Network or talk to someone about being involved in a support group. Because there's something a little bit different being in a group setting that everyone just gets it. So don't try to face it on your own. Contact MS Canada, get connected with people who have MS, a support group. That's my suggestion. Don't try to deal with it alone. Don't ignore it. It's not going anywhere, unfortunately. If we could all just ignore it and then it just really wasn't there, that would be amazing, but you
Oh, wouldn't
have
that be a
to.
cure?
Yes, that would be amazing, but you should find your people, and it's helpful to not deal with it alone.
Because there's so much overwhelm with dealing with a serious illness. It's a very serious
Yes.
illness and a changeable, as you said,
Mhm.
changeable, unpredictable, no cure in sight anyway.
That's right.
And and to try to do that alone, I think is a recipe for further suffering and harm.
Agreed.
Mhm. Well, I'm so glad that people can reach out to MS Canada and that there's ambassadors like you who are there to help provide guidance and support and even just somebody to talk to, even if they're just consuming your social media and they
Mhm.
see a post that resonates with
Mhm.
them and makes them feel validated. There's power in that.
It definitely is. I find that a lot. If you're having a bad day and you really haven't talked to a lot of people just because you didn't want to because you don't feel well and you see a post and you're like, yes, someone gets me 100% right now and they don't even know it. And I'm just like thankful. I don't know who they are. They may not have even created it, but they're sharing it because it resonated with them and also resonated with other people.
We know MS is a progressive disease with no cure as of yet. What advice or encouragement do you think is helpful for women and gender diverse people who are navigating this long, often confusing journey of receiving an MS diagnosis to access their treatment and their care?
First of all, I would say that MS is not a death sentence. You don't die from MS, although shows and people will tell you that, when actually somebody might have died from a complication to MS, like with pneumonia, because unfortunately, all the amazing drugs that are medications that people with MS take, they have an effect on our immune system. So we're not started out with a 100% healthy immune system. MS is autoimmune. So you're going to have interaction with your immune system, especially with the medication. That's one thing I think that you need to think about is you're not going to die. Like you get diagnosed with it, you don't know much about it, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to die. I think that you need to take your time to process it. Unfortunately, a lot of people take a long time to be diagnosed because with MS, you basically need to rule out everything else. And then it is MS, and there's a lot of other illnesses that are very similar. A diagnosis of MS is scary. You're sitting in the doctor's office, they tell you have this illness, the odds are you know nothing about it. It's not the end. It's going to be difficult, but it's not the end. You'll get through it. You don't know when you're first diagnosed how strong you actually are. And if you need support, reach out to the programs like what MS Canada has.
That's great advice, Candice. Can I ask you, what do you think is a common misconception about disability, and how can we work to change that narrative?
I would say that a lot of people think that if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. You're fine one day, you're not the next. Just MS itself is a dynamic disability. One day I'm using a cane. The next day you might see me, although very rare, running with my dog just to catch her. We don't actually do runs, but that's just an example. But you could see that. One day somebody's using um, a walker or some assistive device like that. The next day they're working out of the gym. people need to believe if they can't see it, it still exists.
And also, I think we talked earlier about social media, and I think that social media can be a double-edged sword because it's usually a highlight reel, right? We
Agreed.
want to present the best and put our best face forward and,
Yes.
like talk about the things that we're excited about and that we
Yes.
care about.
Mhm.
And often people shy away from showing the tough stuff, and that's fine. That's their private business, of course. But a lot of advocates, we do post the tough stuff, the good
Mhm.
stuff, but mostly I think it is the more polished version, the
Yes.
the the happier pictures, and so when people see that and they don't understand a non-apparent condition or a dynamic disability, they
Exactly.
might say, "Well, I saw Candice the other day, and she looked like she was having the time of her life, and now today this," and people, I don't know why, but maybe they should, instead of being critical, they should be more curious. But
Yes.
social media sometimes, I think, can work against us. Like, for example, I might post a picture and it's a nice picture and I'm being happy and myself. Nobody can see my symptoms.
Mhm.
Nobody can see how I really feel. It is genuine because you want to show your spirit, and you want to show hope and happiness, especially as an advocate.
Mhm.
But then sometimes I'll share something that is a little harder to look at, like, maybe it's me in the hospital
Mhm.
or looking like totally in pain with tears in my eyes, and that's very hard for me to share.
Right.
I'm doing this for the
Mhm.
advocacy part of it, so that people can see that even if you don't see what my pain and
Mhm.
what my illnesses are, you are seeing some of the journey. What do you
Yes.
think about how social media plays into people's perceptions of, well, I can't see the disability and I'm seeing this on socials. So,
Well, I would say, a victim to it myself. Victim is not the right word I want to use. But when I make videos for like Instagram, a reel, and the odds are when I make it, it's in some way to be an advocate for MS. I do the makeup. I have the filter
yes,
because I want to look great for this thing, even though I'm talking about MS. So they see that and they're like, well, she's making this video. She looks fine.
yeah,
So I do that as well. So I'm like hiding it, but I'm also talking about it at the same time. So I feel like that happens a lot. However, I have showed some things. There's a one picture I remember. There's a picture of me in bed after, I think it was last year, after the MS walk. I was in bed for several days. So there's a picture of that as well. And I had several friends share that. Like, this is
mm,
actually what MS is. So
yeah.
I think it gets into, we wanna portray ourselves a certain way, and to be vulnerable is very difficult.
Yes, I've even had close friends of mine who know what I go through, and they know when
Mhm.
things are really, really hard. A lot of pain, a lot of adversity,
Mhm.
a lot of times when you just feel so beat down for whatever the reason, if it's your symptoms or if it's, ableism or
Mhm.
systemic barriers or whatever it is that's piling up on you. And they'll even say, "Wow, but you look so great on social media." And it's not a criticism, it's
Yeah,
like, "Wow, like, you would never be able
that's
to
right.
tell." And and it took a lot for me to start being more vulnerable
Mhm.
on social media because there's always a risk as a woman online, as
Mhm.
we know, there's a great deal of gender-based digital hate, we know that, but also you're vulnerable because you are disabled in some way
Yes.
and you are sharing personal details,
Mhm.
and it's not for attention, it's often for that transparency and relatability that can help someone be educated or help a cause that you are supporting, to say, this is a face of me, this is a face of my disability,
Right.
it's not the only one.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just very interesting. I find that people react and reach out with DMs, even people I don't know, when they'll see a picture of me. Maybe I was a week where I couldn't use my legs
Mhm.
or stand up, and then but the week after, I am out throwing X's at the X range,
That's right.
so they're like, "But wait, how can that be
Yeah.
possible if you can't stand up and your legs are in that much pain?" But you're like, throw an axis. What,
Mhm.
like, how? And I go, this is a dynamic disability. I don't know how either. And I wish there was more of the surprise,
Mhm.
the surprise good stuff that
Yes.
I say, wow, I've had a great week,
Mhm.
and so when it's captured on social media, hopefully people will look through those posts and see that these are just different views of the same experience.
Yes. I feel like social media is good and bad because as a disabled person, it almost sometimes feel like it's not my right to go have a good time. Like,
Mhm.
'cause I'm one week, people are like, "Oh, do you wanna go?" I'm like, "No, I'm too sick." And then the next week, I'm doing something fun. It's almost like, how dare you have both
Yeah.
extremes? So and it's good to put that out there because 'cause you're like,
Yeah.
"Well, this is this week. I stayed
Yeah.
in bed the whole week, but look at me, I can go do this week and actually enjoy my life because having to stay
Mhm.
home in bed is not enjoyable."
Mhm.
Oh.
And and a dynamic disability, and any disability
Mhm.
really, can change just like
Yes,
any human being. Our
exactly.
our physical bodies can change from hour to hour, day to day, week to
Mhm.
week, right? And what you said just reminded me of there have been times when people have said, "Oh, well, you didn't come to my party and you haven't come to this, that, or the other thing, and you weren't feeling well. And then I see that you were out doing this." First of all, you should be happy that I'm out doing something.
Yes.
Second of all, it's not for you to police and
Mhm.
judge. If I have the energy and if I have a bit of strength, I'm going to get out there and use it. And
Yes.
it might put me back a couple more
Mhm.
days, but we are living in those windows of time, windows of wellness,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Where you gotta just do it while you
Mhm.
can, because we don't know when it will shift and change.
Exactly.
And I think if people were more aware of that and less judgmental, then that would be I think, a pretty amazing small step of allyship to say, "Oh, okay, well, I am disappointed that they couldn't come to my event. I know they haven't been well, and now look, they're out. Maybe they went away for a
That's
weekend. They're
right.
traveling somewhere."
Good. Good for them. They're able to do
Yes,
that.
it should be a
Yes.
happiness
Yeah.
point. Well, because it's not selfish. You should say, "It's not about me. My
Correct.
friend or my loved one or
Mhm.
my colleague or whoever it is, my neighbor, they are doing well enough now to grab this moment," the whole carpe diem
Mhm.
thing, and to just be supportive of it instead of comparing or questioning
Exactly.
it. We haven't talked about this on our podcast before, and I think it's a really important topic. I feel like it could be a whole episode
Yes.
of its
It
own.
probably could be. Yeah.
Right? It
Yeah.
could be. And so thank you for bringing that to light. I really, really appreciate it. So, as you know, I have a Finding Avalon Season 1 playlist, and it's a companion piece to the podcast. And all of my guests choose a couple of songs that really resonate with them. Do you have a song or two that you'd like to add to the playlist? And if so, why did you choose them?
I do. I have 2 songs. The first one is "Titanium" by David Guetta. So I'm medically retired for almost 6 years, mainly due to my fatigue. It was too much, unfortunately. So Titanium was playing on the radio after I had gone into my work to tell my boss that I was done completely. It was like perfect timing. I just left my career in my 30s and this song is on. It couldn't have been any more perfect. Perfect's not the right word. Perfect's far from the right word. And I was like, okay, this is kind of like a good thing, like this song being on.
Mhm. Mhm.
The other song is Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. I feel like that's very cliche. It really is just some things that I've had to go through in my life. You don't realize how strong you are until you don't have a choice.
Well, I really love that you shared those with me. Thank you,
Sure, no
Candice.
problem.
All right. So, my last question for you is this. In 3 words, whether that's 3 separate words or a simple phrase, what does disability inclusion mean to you and why?
I would say the first word that comes to my mind is acceptance. People need to be more open to people with different abilities, no matter what they are. I would say that disability inclusion, it's a right. and nobody should ever make you feel that it's any other way. I would say the third one would be humanity. We're all humans just trying to do our best, and anyone can become disabled at any point in time in their lives. And I think more people need to think of that when they're having that thought in the back of their mind when they see someone out and they're questioning them. So be a good human and think about it that way.
Candice, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and sharing your story, and also telling us about how MS Canada and its ambassadors are supporting people through a very challenging experience with chronic illness and disability. It is so important to have a community to lean on, to relate to feel protected by and supported by. So, if you are living with multiple sclerosis in Canada and in need of information, resources, or support, please visit mscanada.ca to find out about their programs and services. They are there for you. And Candice, as you said, nobody should be facing this alone. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a really fun time.
A great big thank you to everybody listening and supporting this podcast and my passion for increasing authentic disability representation. Please don't forget to follow, like, and share Finding Avalon wherever you get your podcasts, and encourage others to listen along too, maybe even discuss it together. Special artist thanks and credit for the unreleased feature song Coal Miner, written by Steve Hoskins, arranged by Naomi Kavka, and performed by Naomi Kavka, Bryn Porter, and Tony Kostelik. That's it from me, folks. We'll see you next time.